My name is Corcoran Holt, and I'm from Washington, D.C. I was born in North Carolina, but left North Carolina when I was a baby. Went back to D.C. to where my parents are from, and I was raised there in D.C. Let me see. I live in New York. I've been in New York for 10 years. I came here to do my master's degree. First introduction to music was when I was as far as to playing the instruments when I was 4. So I started playing music when I was 4. Percussion, African percussion, and then started playing bass. This thing right here when I was 10, and I'm 33 now. My parents, when they came back to D.C., when me and my sister were little, they wanted us to get involved in something in the community. And in D.C., there was a really strong Afrocentric community surrounded by drumming and dancing. And it was a nice, close-knit, community in D.C. And my parents, they wanted us to get involved in that to learn how to just expand and have extended family and have something that to keep us out of trouble, Yeah. of my parents, they're music lovers, they're art lovers. Like they're definitely artists at heart, but they didn't go that direction professionally. But my my great grandfather, he played the bass in North Carolina, and there's a legendary jazz like pioneer, John Coltrane, who probably one of the most famous jazz musicians ever. But he grew up in the same neighborhood as him, so he used to teach him when he was when John Coltrane was a kid. So basically, my dad was like, and my grandfather came up listening to jazz, and I mean, music was just it was around the family. So um, so that sort of thing. I guess it runs in the family. But the only professional musician that I could really think of would be my great grandfather, who I'm born on the same day as, by the way. Three things really inspire me. Well, probably more than three, but I would definitely have to say at this stage, like location, I think inspires me. Like if I got to perform or something like that, depending on where I am, that's inspirational. My wife is inspirational, inspires me, and also just the musicians that I play with. They inspire me the most. And then this listening and really getting into music, that was like just a huge listening to recordings and stuff like that. That's inspiration, because then you kind of want to do that. Like when you're coming up and you're listening to these things, you want to do that. So that's like huge inspiration. And yeah, just being able to do what I love to do. That's a big inspiration on its own. I'm definitely a go getter. You know, I I've always been kind of like the person who is willing to try things. You know what I'm saying? As far as leaving, like when I left DC, like when I left DC when I was like 22 or something like that, and came to New York. People in DC were like, man, it's cool to go to New York, but you got everything you need right here. You could work 7 nights a week. You could become like I didn't want to be a big fish in a small pond. You know what I'm saying? So I left and came here because I wanted to get it. Now I do sometimes had a tendency to ride the wave. Like I'll set up something, then it take a while, and then it can be successful. Then I'll ride that thing until I have to do something else. But it's all been connected. I've been real blessed on that. You know. I think it's kind of naturally in me. My parents are like that. They both worked like corporate jobs when we were coming up, and then they quit their jobs and then became self-employed. So I think that's kind of in me. You know what I'm saying? Like I kind of looked at them as an example how important it is to actually do something that you love rather than just be a pawn. You know what I'm saying? Like to actually get satisfaction out of something you love. So I think it kind of just happened naturally, just from being around them and having them allow me to go get. Sometimes parents be like, "Oh, you want to be a musician? So what do you really want to do to make money?" My parents were always like, "Yeah, there's successful musicians. You could be one of them. So go do it." To me, I think a late bloomer, the term late bloomer means coming, everything what you're trying to do, it comes, at a point where later in life, you know what I'm saying? Maybe like as a young adult or something like that, something that you always wanted to do, you couldn't do it up until that point, and then you're able to do it. So I think that's kind of like what a late bloomer is. Um, as far as there's certain things I am a late bloomer in, and then there's certain things that I was really good at when I was a kid, like drumming and percussion. I was great at as a kid. Playing the bass, when I started at 10, I still wanted to be a drummer. So wasn't passionate about playing the bass for like 4 years. And then once I got to high school, um, because I wasn't totally passionate about the bass, the other people that were just bass players, like some of my closest friends now, we're all grown now, but we're all doing very well. But some guys were on like a higher level. So kind of inspired me to really practice and to really get in tune with bringing the worlds of drumming into the worlds of bass so I can enjoy playing bass. So things kind of happened. I developed at kind of like as far as kind of really molding my craft on bass at a later age. So probably, there was a huge jump between like 17 and like 22. You know what I'm saying? I started getting all these opportunities that I didn't think I was ready for. But I looked at myself as a late bloomer, but it turned out that I was more ready than I thought I was. But, it was like 5 guys in high school, so I was kind of chasing. I was always chasing them, trying to get to a certain place. I guess with that being said, it affects my life because even today, as 33-year-old man, the dudes that I grew up with, they've all left DC and came here. So we're all still going like this. So it's still kind of like the same sort of thing. You know what I'm saying? We all inspire each other. So it's kind of like that whole thing kind of did carry on into adulthood. You know what I'm saying? But I think it's just, as far as the term late bloomer goes, you know what I'm saying? I look at guys younger than me, 10 years younger than me, 15 years younger than me. And if I could see something that they're trying to do, I'm willing to help them understand that they could do it. You know what I'm saying? So just because I was there. So I kind of like that cycle, makes me go back and kind of try to help those that are coming up. As far as being an artist, like I think the thing that kind of sets it apart from everything else, a lot of people work a 9 to 5. So for me, like I don't work a 9 to 5. So as far as that goes, when my phone rings and somebody's like, "Hey, can you make this gig? Can you make this tour? Can you make this recording?" That is my 9 to 5. So it's like that's what I do. So sometimes that's what I have to do, and sometimes when I'm dealing with people who work a 9 to 5 and don't understand that world completely, they don't get that it's just as much work. Because even if I'm not at a job, you know what I'm saying, or I'm not in school or whatever, my job consists of practicing, rehearsing, figuring out which gig to take and which gig not to take. You know what I'm saying? So it's just as exhausting as sad. But I think that the blessing about it is that I love to do it. It could still be tiresome if you get on a gig with some people that you don't want to play with, then it feels like you're in a cubicle. You know what I'm saying? It could feel like that. It could feel like a 9 to 5 job. And then you're like, man, I got to do better on deciding which gigs to take. But sometimes, like people that don't do what they love, and they'll come and hear you play, and they're getting off of their job, and they're like, man, they hate what they do. They look at it, and they look at me doing what I'm doing. They're like, oh man, I wish I could do that. That doesn't seem like a lot of work. Sometimes people actually think that. They're like, man, that doesn't even seem. They're just having fun. I'm like, man, it takes just as much work to have fun doing it as it's like completing a project, or whatever. You got this big assignment at work that you got to do. Once you hit that stage, that's your assignment. You know what I'm saying? So it's two worlds that are similar, but both take a lot of preparation, man. It really does keep me humble, man. You know what I'm saying? Knowing that there's always somebody out there that's better than you. There's always actually a lot of people that are better than you, but you just got to figure out where you fit in. I mean, it's inspiring because you just always kind of chasing. You're always kind of like trying to get to the next level. But then eventually you realize that you can only be, where you're gonna be. You know what I'm saying? You can't be somebody else. All you can do is be you, but just do everything you got to do to keep elevating your craft and what you're doing. So that could be a late bloomer sort of, psychology or whatever way of thinking. You know what I'm saying? But that's the good part about that, because you kind of just it keeps you humble no matter how much you achieve. If I could change anything right now, I would try to put some of the music that I play on a regular basis. I wish it could be more respected by this country. You know what I'm saying? This country. And so if I could do something to change that, which is what I'm trying to do, it's hard because a lot of people in America, they think that jazz music or whatever, jazz consists of a lot of different sorts of things, you know what I'm saying? But it was the birthplace is right here, and people don't know that. So you go to Europe, you go to Asia, you treat it almost like not a god, but you're treated with so much respect and so much appreciation. So if I could figure out how to transfer that here to America and touch the younger generation, have people understand that there's such a close relation between jazz and hip hop, because it's pretty much the same thing, except the thing about jazz is, it's like I just kind of want to bring that in. If I could change that, I would want to inspire the younger generation and inspire the people here and have them know that jazz is from here, and there's something for everybody, man. You're not gonna like everything, but there's something for everybody. Like, you came to the show the other night, I'm sure there was something there you like, oh man, I didn't even know that this was, yeah, you know what I'm saying? So it's like something for everybody, man. And I just would really want to put that out there. So that's what I'm trying to do. Yeah, motivational to my generation, the generation underneath me. You know what I'm saying? And just keep people, keep the younger generation knowing that they could do what they want to do. It's possible. I want to be an example. I want to be an example of letting people know that they could do what it is that they want to do, man. Of course, make a lot of money and all of that stuff. That would be cool. But I'm good. I'm able to be happy and survive and be an artist and do what I love. So, man, everything's moving the way it's supposed to move. Let people know that they could do whatever they want to do, man. Like, and I'm an example of that. I'm not old or nothing like that, but I do what I love to do, and I just, people could do the same, man. All the kids that I teach, I tell them that, man. You could do the same, man. Just have that right state of mind and try to make the best choices possible, and stay open-minded and have fun. Have fun, but focus.
My name is Mark Conti. I live in New Jersey. I'm a commercial photographer shooting still life and fashion for work. And I do, nature and fine art for myself. biggest passion is probably creating imagery, but I don't know, that's kind of a loaded question because I feel like part of having passion is, not limiting it. So like, yeah, pictures, yeah, sound, really anything that's like creative that like you can have an outlet for, to make something to share with somebody else. I think that's my passion, making things to share with other people. Well, I guess the reason I started taking pictures was, I caught on to it kind of at the end of the film era and the beginning of the digital. So like I bought a computer and it came with a little crappy like 2 megapixel camera, and I just started like bringing it around with me in my pocket all the time, and started just capturing friends and things that we do, and kind of noticed that like, oh man, the things that I'm capturing look kind of cool afterwards, once I can actually look at it after the fact. And then I had like a couple people kind of tell me like, hey, actually it was people who work in the photography field, stylists and actually photographers when I was little, they were like, man, you're not so bad at this, like you should kind of think about this. And so I thought about it, and there you go. So yeah, I think it's what I said before, and there was the noise, is fucking, people are always like, oh man, tell me about your pictures. What were you trying to accomplish with it? What are you trying to express? And I'm like, what are you talking about? Does it make you happy or not? Is it a pretty picture or not? And like, that's all I've really been trying to get at, is like, using color, using light, using contrast to like kind of shift the way that you see things a little bit to hopefully a way that you could appreciate it a little bit more. The reason for photography, at least, the reason that I started getting into the creative field was like, I got a little free camera with a computer that I bought when I was like, 10 or 11, and 2 megapixel, actually Gateway brand digital camera. But I just started like carrying around and like taking pictures of places that I was going, friends, things that we were doing, and I started showing it to people after I'd accumulated a bunch of images, and more than one person was like, oh hey, like you kind of have an eye for this, like you should kind of think about photography later in life, as a profession. And at the time I was kind of like, that's funny, like just gonna be a hobby, to pursue. I always got a kick out of it anyway. But once I got to college and like I actually started as a computer science major, and then very quickly I realized my brain wasn't for that, and I was like, you know what, I'm good with the camera. Got back into it and had a lot of people be like, yeah, you should go for it. So I went for it. Something that I thought of a couple years ago, actually, and it's kind of been like a recurring project of mine, is grounding. Or at least that's what I call it in my head. And it's kind of literally just taking pictures of the ground. Originally, the point of it was to just kind of highlight like the pretty things that you literally just walk all over all the time. And, a lot of people kind of stare at the ground as they walk, but I don't know if you really, sometimes even like patterns of pieces of gum on the street can be kind of pretty, even though it's also kind of filthy. But I think especially in a place like New York, or just this whole area, it's, sometimes that's the only prettiness we get is what there is in the filthy. Like things that I see and things that I hear, I think more so than people kind of inspire me. I don't know, but when I see somebody making really creative shit, it doesn't necessarily matter who it is. Like, if there's somebody that I know who's making great imagery or making great sound, like, cool. That's what gets me going. A go-getter or a sheep? I mean, I think that everyone would like to consider themselves a go-getter. I don't know. I think it's a back and forth day by day kind of thing, whether or not you're a go-getter or a sheep. Today I woke up with allergies, so I kind of feel like I just woke up and I was like, oh my god, this is what I got to do. Today's kind of a sheep day, but Like, you know, other days you wake up and you're like, yo, I'm gonna kill it today. I'm just gonna go do my thing. Yeah, I'm a go-getter, you know.
Nice.
Keep them busy, trying to do my thing. Yeah, I think that's the struggle, is like starting something and following through.
Okay.
My mom actually went to school for art, and I think she got, what's the 2-year degree, associates, in art. So like I was always kind of around it. Like she was always doing creative things, but it was like, you know, stained glass and little watercolors and just, you know, stuff. But she would, you know, keep busy with little projects like that. And when I said that I was going to be a photographer, you know, not a computer scientist and not a business major and not something practical, there was a pretty big backlash from my family. Like, you're never going to make any money. Why would you ever want to do this? And I was like, because this is my thing. Like, this is what, you know, this is my thing. This is what gets me going. People seem to like it. So, you know, if I could turn it into consistently making, you know, cool looking shit, things that look pretty, like, you know, if I can make something like this and somebody goes, oh man, that looks pretty good, I want to buy one of those and hang it on my wall, you know, if I do that however many times, like, I can make a living off that, and that's great. Making pretty shit. Right? Yeah, making pretty things. Hey.
Yeah.
I think everybody on some level or another is a late bloomer, because if you, like, all right, so somebody hit their stride when they were young, right? But even as they've already, like, found out, you know, this is generally what I'm going for, I guess the point of doing anything is to kind of keep getting better at it. So, like, ideally I want to be a late bloomer, because by the end I want to be the best at it. More so than when I started, more so than 2 days ago, more so than 6 months ago, you know. Blooming consistently. As being, I guess, part of the creative class, there's, you know, in the 1980s, even like 70s through 80s through early 90s, to be a commercial photographer, if assuming that you got like an agent or, you know, any decent clients at all, like, you were pulling in pretty hefty day rates. Like, the guy that I worked for back in the early 90s, pulling in $10,000 a day to show up and essentially give them like 6 pictures, like, and that's insane. Awesome, but insane. Today, with the advent of smartphones and, you know, everybody just being able to take a picture, there's a lot of people, it got saturated with, like, literally just the amount of imagery that's out there and available. So, like, today, you know, to be a photographer and to, like, contribute something that gets something out of other people, I guess even more generally than that, just to create something that evokes, it's cool, but like I said, with the saturation of everything, the value's, like, not there anymore. So, like, a $10,000 a day rate, you're lucky if you get 3, and even that's on the high end. Like, hell, I'm an assistant, I pull 300, so, like, a fraction of that, but shit, still. You know, I find myself, I don't know if jealousy is quite the right word, but, like, kids that I went to college with, kids that I went to high school with, you know, they have like real people jobs, like, you know, architects and business people and computer IT and, like, going like practical things, like when I told my parents I was going to get into photography, they were like, do something practical. Like, that's what they meant. And, you know, sometimes I'm like, you know, they get guaranteed, you know, 5 days a week work. They're on a salary. They get health benefits. They get 401ks. I don't get that. Not unless I, you know, were to go work at one of those factory places, which I'm thinking about. But, yeah, there's, like, a part of it, like the stability. You know, they're already working on retirement plans. Like, what the fuck is a retirement plan? I'm 27 and I'm working freelance for, you know, 8 years now. Like, that doesn't, like, exist in my world, and sometimes I start to think about it and I'm like, you know, the pressure of it sets in, like, oh man, life, I gotta contribute to society in my own way and, you know, welfare is gonna run out and all this Medicare is gonna run out and shit. But like, fuck it, I don't even care. Fuck it.
My name is Jacalyn Nelson. I am a kindergarten teacher. I live in East Harlem. I'm from Westchester, New York. And I'm a kindergarten teacher, but I'm a career changer as well. So I worked in fashion for about 5 years prior to going back to school and becoming a teacher. I would say my biggest passion is empowering young girls. I teach at an all-girls school. So I would say empowering young girls, specifically girls of color, as a teacher of color in a private school. I am very passionate about helping them to fulfill their potential and dismantling any gender stereotypes. And I find that being a kindergarten teacher, I get to do that in a way that sets them up going into the older grades. And, you know, while they are still open to exploring all parts of themselves, I'm also passionate about educating educators about the importance of understanding cultural differences. So I'm a classroom teacher, a kindergarten teacher, but I'm also the director of diversity for our K through 4. So that means I'm responsible for creating curriculum and professional development for my colleagues, and I also work with parents to teach them. You know, I teach a very privileged population, so teaching people with white privilege about the importance of understanding others that don't fit. And to also disrupt stereotypes that they might already hold. My biggest passion, I would say, is my girls and empowering my girls. I teach at an all-girls school. I taught at an all-boys school. I taught at a co-ed school. But I have found my passion being here and encouraging young women, or young girls, they're not young women yet, but encouraging young girls to really push themselves, stretch themselves, and question the world around them. I think too often girls are silenced and or put in a very particular box, and I find my passion in ripping that box open and helping them to feel empowered and feel like they can affect change. And more specifically, my passion lies in doing that work with girls of color. I teach in a private school, and there are not, in an all-girls school, there are not as many role models for young women of color, young girls of color. And so I am very passionate about providing those role models for them, bringing, whether it's myself through books, through the conversations that we have, and enabling them to see themselves reflected in the world around them. I'm equally passionate, I would say, about educating my colleagues as well, and the parents that I work with. And I think encouraging people to think about difference in a world of uber privilege. I think I am passionate about really helping people to understand multiple perspectives, if you will. There are a number of people who inspire me for a multitude of reasons. You know, in my as I've grown as a professional educator, I would say that my current direct boss, my divisional head, my division head, he is. There's a phrase called resonant leadership, which means that you lead by understanding people's emotional intelligence and understanding their personal stories. I would say he's an inspiration in that way, because in doing that, you're stepping outside of yourselves and you're encouraging leadership in a different, you're fostering leadership in a different capacity. I think for me, I have always been a go-getter of sorts. I think that I learned early on, there was a period of time that I was willing to just do I was told to, what I was asked to, what I was expected to. But I have always felt that I fall outside of the norm, if you will. So while my sisters were in beauty pageants and wearing dresses and all that stuff, I wasn't about that life, and I was digging for worms and playing sports and, you know, playing with the boys and doing all that stuff. And I think that the older I got, the more of a go-getter I became. And I think with age comes confidence in who you are. And so over the years, it's almost like my thing is to stand outside the box. Like, I prefer to be an outlier of sorts, and I think it's more interesting outside the box and doing your own thing and paving your own way. And I think that I can't necessarily name a specific event that inspired the go-getterness, but I guess I think my parents have always let me do what I want, and I think that in having that freedom, I have come to learn or appreciate what it means to think for yourself and be an individual and embrace that. It's funny you asked that question because I'm dealing with the side of the impact of being a go-getter in a place where they are more accepting of sheep, and so being a go-getter, you know, it puts me in a particular place when it comes to motivating people to think outside the box. My biggest struggle is that I am extremely emotional. And not in that stereotypical woman is emotional thing, but like emotional in that I feel everything very deeply. I think that's just how I'm hardwired. And so I think my bigger dealing with that emotional side enables me to connect very easily with most people, but it also presents a challenge when I have to hear things that I don't necessarily agree with, accept things that I cannot change. I can spin a little bit. So I think managing my emotions is my bigger challenge, but it comes from a good place. Yeah. I have an aunt who has since passed, but she actually, I have a picture of her in my classroom. I'm looking at it right now. She was an educator. She was a kindergarten teacher, actually, out in California. She was a kindergarten teacher for like 40 years. And while she and I were not close, I remember visiting her in California when I was a kid, and there was just something. She didn't have kids of her own either, and there was just something very nurturing and special about the way she talked to me and listened to me, and so there's the educator in that. And my mom, God bless her, she's had like 12 careers trying to figure it out. But yeah, I would say that I don't come from a line of educators, but there's definitely one in the family that has been a motivator for the career change that I made. Late bloomer. That's funny because there's a book that I read to my girls. It's called Leo, the Late Bloomer, and it's about a lion who loves flowers, and he's not like all the other lions. So if I consider it in that context, maybe I am a late bloomer. I came to my profession later, so in that sense, yeah. I don't know if I would be the same kind of teacher in my 20s that I am in my 30s. I think I have a greater awareness about people, and I am less egocentric. And I also think coming to my profession later, I kind of bridge parts of my community. In my passion for promoting diversity and inclusivity, if I could change anything, it would be to make myself the final decision maker, right? Like there are obvious limitations to what I can do based on where I fall within the power structure of an independent school. I think that if I had it my way, there are some things that would be pushed to the top of the priority list. And I think that I would redistribute the resources. I would do a whole lot to our curriculum. But with those limitations in place, I try to just do that in my own sphere of influence. Like I try to do those things for my girls in my room, in my class. That's one of the bigger life lessons is accepting the things you cannot change and focusing on the things that you can. I can't actually imagine my life any differently than it is now. I'm happy to wake up and come to work and be with my girls and inspire them and laugh with them and be with them and learn from them in kind. Everything has brought me to the place where I'm meant to be. It is very easy to be swayed by what's dangled out in front of you. And I think it's really important to be in touch with yourself so that you know what fulfills you and what brings you joy. One of the biggest life lessons that I've learned is that you have to make yourself happy first, and the money's not going to make you happy. The title's not necessarily going to make you happy unless with that title comes the ability to affect change in the way that you would like to. I think the most important thing for anybody, regardless of their path, is that ultimately we're here for a blip in time, and it is our responsibility to leave the world better than we found it. So whatever that means for anyone else, that's what they should do. For anyone watching this, it is important for you to understand that you have your one life to live, and if you spend it consumed by how other people perceive you or what you have or don't have, you are going to be a very unhappy person. And I think the more you can be in touch with yourself and the more you can think about how you can bless someone else or benefit someone else, the happier you will be over time. There's a quote that is my senior quote in high school, and these are words that I live by to this day. And the quote says, do not wish to be anything but what you are, and to be that perfectly. That's my final answer.